All right, welcome everybody to the Health Transformation webinar. Really excited to be with you guys today. We got Regan Archiblad here.
Hey guys.
Of East West Health, amazing acupuncturist, functional medicine practitioner, and just an all-around, I'd give him like a solid 6 on a guy scale. He's just a solid guy. No, he's like a 10.
That's it. All right, thank you.
So how's it going today?
Really good. Yeah, we got some interesting things coming up in our presentation today. So I think, I'm excited about it. We've been getting a lot of questions, and so last night I did some work, and I got some goods.
Yeah, I think this topic's a really cool topic. So we're going to be diving into why your labs look great, everything looks normal, but you still might not feel like that.
Yeah.
And why that is. And so really intriguing topic.
Awesome. Well, I think all of us have been in this boat. My journey started out with not knowing what was going on in my own health. And I think many of you can relate. And so if you guys, for those of you who have had your labs ran and you're really pumped up because finally someone's going to tell you what's going on, and then you get the lab results back and you're like, oh, everything's normal. Your doctor's like, good news, everything's normal, but you still feel like crap. How many of you have actually experienced that? I would like to hear what's going on there. I think many people there. We've got Instagram. Are you on Facebook too, Cade? And
it's taken a second to load, but it will be.
Okay, and then we've got our webinar participants. So feel free to share your story, because as what we're going to talk about today is why that is and what it really means. And so if you are in the stage of your health where you want to actually dive in and learn some deeper truths, well, stick around till the end, because I'm going to share with you what functional lab ranges look like and what they mean, and then I'll give you some tips on what you can do about it. So, all right, so let's jump in. So first of all, how many of you are researching everything on your own when it comes to your health? And you're wondering, man, do I have to do all the work? I thought I hired my doctor to do this for me, but at the end of the day, you're doing nonstop research. This was me for a lot of years. Cade, you've heard my story, and some of you on the webinar have, where I used to read books on nutrition when I was in high school. And one of the ways we got out of farm work is if we made the team, the basketball team, the football team. And so I remember the very first article I read, I think it was, I can't remember if it was an article in a magazine or if it was a book that I was reading on nutrition, but they talked about the cardiovascular benefits of high doses of vitamin C. So I gave my entire basketball team high doses of vitamin C, and we all ended up with diarrhea. And so I was just looking to improve performance, and actually I went the other way. We actually diminished our performance. So whoops. A little better at that now, but the problem is we now have Google, and so there's a lot of us who are doing this diagnostic process with Google, and we're failing to look at the bigger picture. And a lot of times I get it, because patients come to us and they're frustrated. I hear every single day that I've been to all the specialists in the valley. No one can tell me what's going on. I'm tired of doing all the work on my own. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm getting worse. And what can you guys do for me that's going to be different? And so I feel people's pain when it comes to not knowing what labs to run, not knowing where to go. And then you get on Google, and Google can, you can have like 12 diagnoses by the end of a Google search if you just plug in your symptoms. I mean, WebMD is brilliant at that. And that's actually one of the things the pharmaceutical companies do, is they can't promote a drug before that drug is released, but they can promote a condition as to where you need that drug. Like the drug like Paxil for social anxiety, well, that wasn't an approved method of using Paxil originally. And so what the pharmaceutical company was doing that made Paxil was just promoting social anxiety. And then they had spokespeople, and then everyone started to feel like, oh man, I get social anxiety, I need Paxil. And then once it was released, I mean, Paxil was the best-selling drug for a lot of years. But for those of you who are wondering, why do all my tests, I get them ran, and my doctor says everything's fine, but you still have these symptoms. It's kind of like this image on the side. Cade, I think that's a picture I took of you when you were seeing your doctor, just to pay you back from giving. You like that one?
I like that one. That is good.
Okay, I know the Instagrammers are going to want to see this, so I'll try and get this cartoon so you guys can see it. Now you got the image, and so I will read it to you. It says, gee, doc, I just feel like shit. And the doctor looks at him and says, I believe it, because you sure look like shit. So some of us, we just want our doctor to tell us, what we really look like and what's going on in our body, so at least we have some validation. But, think about that. If you want to take some proactive steps to secure your health and wellness, do you want to reduce your chances of getting sick? Would you like to feel great again? These are all things that we're looking at in health, and you can't discover your own health process and your own health independence if you're not getting the right answers. And so the problem with the answers we've been given, and one of the reasons why you've been told, well, everything looks normal, there's nothing to worry about, it's because the system has failed you, because we've been fed this misinformation, and we think that lab values are going to let us know what's going on in our body, but lab values are designed to give you one thing, and that's to tell you when there's a disease in your body. And so some of you may, all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? And all a lab is doing is letting the doctor know when you've got a disease. And so you can have some markers that are high or low, but if there's not enough of those, your doctor will kind of skim through it and say, you look great, everything looks normal, but you can be like steps away from death. It's like, Cade and I, our dad, he was 10 feet away from having a massive heart attack and from death, literally. And that was a couple weeks after he had all his labs ran, and his doctor said, Mr. Archibald, I wish I had your lab values. You are incredibly healthy, nothing wrong. And then 2 weeks later, our dad's watering the track at Cade's motorcycle race and goes into full-blown heart attack. I mean, he could have died out there. Luckily, he was right by an ambulance. What were you going to say about that, Cade?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it was crazy. Everything looks great. Normal cholesterol levels, everything.
Yep. Yeah. And so that's where, we can't trust the labs at face value, because one of the things that the pharmaceutical company is driven by are profits. And I'm not against profits, and business that are for profit do a lot of good for society, sometimes better than nonprofit organizations from what I've seen. But the big problem is when you have these corporations that have a monopoly, like the pharmaceutical company, they have a monopoly over healthcare. And so what they want to do is create patients for life. So they want to get you a disease fully set in, and then you need the medication. And then how long you're on that medication? Well, it's the rest of your life. And if you look at the doctor's visits, this was from the CDC. Last year, 76% of visits to the doctor ended in a prescription. So for those of you who are like, man, I do not want to get a prescription. Well, the patients of mine who are on the fewest prescriptions are the ones who never see their doctor. They said, I don't go to a doctor. I don't want to take their pills. But it's getting worse. It's not getting better. This is up from 74% the year before, up from 70% 5 years before. So every single year we're getting more and more prescriptions written by doctors. And that study out of the University of Miami, they found that the average patient who is explaining their symptoms gets cut off within 11 seconds. So Cade, how do you feel when someone cuts you off when you're trying to explain how you feel as far as your health goes?
Very unvalidated.
Okay, can you stop real quick? I know exactly what's going on. You've got social anxiety, and we've got a medication for that, so you're good.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Unheard.
So think about this. Here's why your lab. So if you look at lab ranges, they take a bell curve. And so you can get one lab value and it'll be normal in one state. You can go to the next state, and based on that population, your lab values can be skewed. So you can be pre-diabetic in Utah, and then you can be totally healthy if you cruise down to Mississippi or Alabama, where everybody's got elevated hemoglobin A1C, and a lot of more diabetes down there than there is in Utah. And so what you look at is labs, they have their own bell curve. And so they take 95% of the population and they do algorithms and they say, okay, well, as long as you fit within this criteria, you're normal. And so if you're too far on the left, too far on the right, that's when you have like a flag goes off and it says, hey, you're you know, low in iron, or your hemoglobin A1C is high, for example. And so then that's when the flag goes off. And I can't believe how many patients bring their labs to me. And I said, has no one talked to you about this? Your kidneys are literally like you're steps away from kidney failure. And it's like it completely gets dismissed. And so we want to take your lab values and get away from that bell curve and bring the criteria in, so that we can actually give you a perspective on what's going on in your body. Because if you look at what functional medicine is, I guess, Cade, what would you say a good definition is of function? If we're looking at what functional medicine means, what's a good term? How do you describe function?
It's like ideal, or, and I guess function is not necessarily the ideal, but something in range where systems are actually functioning.
So the ability to perform an action, right?
There we go. That's
I'll give the answer.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
I needed multiple choice.
I should have done A. Is it? I'll try and do that next time, but then I'll cut you off because you only have 11 seconds in this show.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so function is just the ability to perform an action. So if we look at all the functions in your body, there's certain functions that they break down, right? And so that's called a malfunction. So the very first thing is we have all these malfunctions, and all the time our body's never in perfect homeostasis, but all the time we have these malfunctions that build up, and then suddenly something breaks, and then a disease pattern shows. Now the disease may start to show up on a blood lab. The symptoms are going to be the very last thing to show up. So by the time you're tired, your joints ache, your hair's falling out, you're constipated, you've got no libido, you're depressed, you've got anxiety, you can't sleep at night, it's too far gone. Like, we've waited way too long, because symptoms are the very last thing to show up. And sometimes you can have these symptoms, but you're based on 95% of the population. Now, the Lancet released a study, and what they found in this study last year, actually 2017 is when the study took place, they found that 95% of the world's population has at least one chronic disease, at least one healthcare condition that concerns them. So if we're taking even the worldwide population and putting it in 95% of those ranges are healthy, you're going to wait until your symptoms are basically where, oh, you're almost ready to die, let's take care of it. So hopefully that gives you guys a little perspective that, you know, it's not your fault if you've been told everything looks good in your labs. Because from those lab values, it may look just fine, and you may be the picture of health, but you can still feel like crap. So let's talk about the difference between a functional blood chemistry panel versus a disease-based. Now, functional blood chemistry, we look at the whole picture, because if one thing in your body is not working well, then that can start to affect everything in your body. And so it's not like your liver is just this island floating in, like a big old organ floating in your abdomen. The liver is connected to your thyroid, is connected to your adrenal glands, connected to your digestion, your stomach, your small intestine, your gallbladder. And so you want to look at the whole picture. So that's what functional blood chemistry does. And functional blood chemistry is like getting a PhD in lab reviews. And so our doctors who have gone through this process, I've gone through the training as well, they can look at it and they can evaluate the approximately 50 different blood markers that play a role in detecting any underlying imbalances. And so some of the underlying imbalances you want to look at is hyperglycemia or hypoglycemia. And this can be high blood sugar or low blood sugar. And this is also where we take the functional blood chemistry, and we don't do it independently, but I'll talk about this more in a minute, but you want to clump it in with the symptoms. We look at impaired kidney function. That's a big deal. Impaired liver function, dehydration, electrolyte imbalances. You can detect gout from a functional blood chemistry panel. Muscle mass loss or gain, you can look at impaired gallbladder function, iron deficiency or iron overload, like hemochromatosis. You can look at B12 deficiency, anemia. These can be the iron and the B12 or folate related. You look at cholesterol and heart disease. We want to look at blood sugar balance, your thyroid function. Is your thyroid overperforming or underperforming? You want to look at viral and bacterial infections. All these things can show up in a functional blood chemistry panel. Allergies, vitamin D deficiency or toxicity. And then one of the big things that's not really laid out here is autoimmunity. And I should have put that in there. Maybe it's, yeah. So autoimmunity is the other big one. Anything else that you can see, Cade, that maybe I missed as far as what we look at, some of the things we can detect with a functional blood chemistry panel?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it, but some of your inflammatory markers, and even you can start to see some genetic variations just based on some of what's happening in your blood work. And so that's the other fascinating thing too, if you get the right type of panel.
Right. Yeah. And so that's where like homocysteine, if your homocysteine elevated and it's like that frequently, there's like a 95% chance that you've got MTHFR issues. So it's one of the genes that helps you methylate. And so yeah, that's what Cade is referring to genetically. So there's so many things we can look at from functional blood chemistry. But the biggest thing that you want to do is in your health, if you wait until the disease fully shows up, you wait till you get a diagnosis, you don't do anything about it, your body can be massively in this degenerative cycle. And you're not necessarily piling up symptoms. It's not like you start feeling worse because your body tries to mask the symptoms. And then finally it's like, I just woke up one day and I just felt like I got hit by a bus. And I hear that from so many patients. So don't wait when you're looking at functional blood chemistry panels. The second thing functional blood chemistry ranges do is we narrow the parameters. And so when you go to your doctor, like I mentioned before, you're going to be on that bell curve. So your doctor is going to look at things very broadly. What we want to do is narrow those down, and then we want to start analyzing all the different systems in your body so that we can start to predict what disease patterns are coming up. So really the only way that I can see how to practice preventative medicine from a medical perspective, not a lifestyle perspective, is actually getting your functional blood chemistry labs ran on a regular basis, very consistent, at least twice a year. Here's kind of an example of what we see. So if you look at thyroids, a lot of people in Utah and all over the world have thyroid issues. In fact, Synthroid has been the #1 most prescribed drug. Synthroid is a thyroid medication. It's been the #1 most prescribed drug since 2013. And so why is that? Well, a lot of times the thyroid goes misdiagnosed. What were you going to say about that, Cade?
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, wow, since 2013, that's just a long time to be the #1 seller.
Yeah, 5 years, and I'm sure it's still going strong. But part of the reason is people get diagnosed, oh, you've got hypo or hyperthyroidism. Hypothyroid is where you use Synthroid, which is synthetic T4. But if you look at it, a lot of these lab ranges, they're only checking TSH. Maybe you'll get T4, T3. But what you really want to start looking at is all the other markers. Like if you look at the antibodies, so your TPO, your thyroid peroxidase antibodies, those are very critical to test because that can show you if it's an autoimmune condition. Because in women especially, about 90% of the cases of hypothyroidism actually relate to an immune imbalance where your body's immune system is attacking your thyroid. So then you'll ask your doctor, why don't you run this full panel? And typically the doctor will tell you, well, we don't run the full panel because the treatment's the same. You've got hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. Medication route's going to be the same. There's nothing that's going to be taken care of to really dig into the underlying cause. And so this is, one of the key components. The third thing you want to look at when you're looking at functional blood chemistry is you want to look at lifestyle factors and total health. And so it's not just that one lab result alone, but now what we're going to do is talk about the other labs that you want to start coupling in with your functional blood chemistry so you can get a complete picture on what's going on in your health. Because what we found is there's at least 5 core pillars of health. One of those core pillars is your gut health and genetics. And the gut health can really help influence the way that we digest our foods, the way our brain works, also the way that our inflammatory and immune system behaves in our body. You look at nutrition, that's the second pillar of health. Hormones is the third pillar. Fitness and exercise is the fourth pillar, and then brain health, that's the fifth pillar. And there's different tests that will help you analyze exactly how things are functioning in your body. So many of you know, I've got this mission. I want to end pain and chronic disease for 1 million people by 2025. And so when I say end pain and chronic disease, there's a few things that I have as criteria for this, but I want to ultimately give you back your health independence. So I want you to be mentally fit, no pain, no disease, have a fun, active lifestyle, be physically fit, no lab imbalances, because once again, you cannot have your health independence if you're just playing guessing games and if you're letting your body go too long before you actually get some tests taken. I want you to be emotionally vibrant, living with a purpose. I think that's the most important thing. We can get pulled off track, pulled off our purpose based on stress or other people's agendas. So really dig into your purpose. It's really key. And then no aging. And Cade, what would you say no aging means? How would we classify that? Because we're all getting older. We got no choice. We either die or we get older, right? So
yeah. So I think aging and no aging might be a little bit of a long shot, but it's ultimately like your body stops aging. So you can, it doesn't matter what the number is. It'll continue to climb as you day by day. That's inevitable, but how you treat your body, how you, different lifestyle activities, different, there's other treatments that can, really, stop aging as well. And so that, there's a lot of things we can do there, but the meaning behind that is like, let's live, fulfilled, healthy lives and not go through, what's the term when you start premature aging?
Premature mortality. So a lot of people, they're walking around with all these chronic diseases. So they're the dead among the living. It's happening in the 30s now. So, all right. So let's talk about some things you can do. I mean, first of all, you have to ask yourselves, would you want to just wait until you had full-blown diabetes, or would you rather start working on it as soon as you had that red flag? And I think this is really key, because a lot of times your doctor will say, okay, well, you're pre-diabetic. We just tested your hemoglobin A1C and it's 6.1. So what are we going to do? We're going to watch it. Sometimes they'll write you out a prescription for metformin, but usually it's just, let's watch it. Where we want you to be is we want your hemoglobin A1C to be like 4.8 to about 5.1. Right in that range is like the sweet spot, 5.2. We want your fasting glucose to be at least below 100, so 99 or below. It's even better if you're closer to around 80 on your fasting glucose. And by the way, you guys can do this test. You can go to any pharmacy and you can buy a glucometer and you can test your fasting glucose. You just want to make sure that you haven't eaten that night. Give yourself that fasting window. Ideally 12 hours is going to give you a very good picture of how you're doing overall on your fasting glucose. And then you can do an oral glucose tolerance test where you drink a sugar solution and then you watch to see how far up your blood sugar rises. If you're pre-diabetic, it's going to rise above 140. And so that's something you want to look at, and then it will start to drop. But sometimes it will drop too low, and then you go hyper and then hypoglycemia. So there's very easy, predictable tests. I mean, it costs $10 to buy a glucometer. The strips cost about $5. And it's a simple test. We have a hemoglobin A1C machine here at the clinic. And so stop on by and we'll test your hemoglobin A1C for you. This is one of the early predictors you can do for your health. When you're looking at your functional blood chemistry analysis, there's different markers that we're looking at. So if you've got insulin resistance or adrenal disorders, you want to look at lab high glucose, high hemoglobin A1C, high triglycerides, high uric acid. These are all things that will show up with insulin resistance, or the cortisol imbalance with the adrenals. So it's not just one marker that you're looking at. You want to look at the whole picture. Autoimmune thyroid, check if you've got positive TPO. If you've got functional hypothyroid or thyroid under conversion or thyroid resistance, you could have low T3, low free T3, low T3 uptake, and then even you can have a low value in your reverse T3. And then inflammation, high C-reactive protein, high monocytes, high eosinophils. The other one Cade mentioned is homocysteine, and that's where you need some phase 2 and methylation support. Lipid imbalances, you can look at, do you have high LDL? Do you have high cholesterol? Low LDL, it can even be a lipid imbalance, or high cholesterol and your HDL, LDL ratio can be out of balance. Look at your vitamin D, look at liver dysfunction. All these things are very important. So one of the other tests you want to do is a gut test. And so we use either Genova Labs, Diagnostics, Viome, and these are very important because what you have in your poop can predict how your blood is actually showing up. And so Viome is a very easy test. You can have a little app on your phone that will show you exactly what's going on in your body. So definitely Viome is key. Cade, were you going to say something on Viome, or is there?
No, you're good. I was going to make a joke about all the poop tests and feeling like poop, but anyways.
Exactly. Kind of goes along with that first slide that we went through.
Yeah.
You can get your genetics tested. This is my advanced methylation detoxification pathway. You can even do 23andMe, and there's very good programs now that we can get your genetics dialed in. We've been running a lot of our patients through a company called Genomind Toolbox, and we can tell you what foods your body does the best with. And so, yeah, amazing things there. So we want to look at everything from a blood perspective, or you can just wait. And so we can be like the doctor that says, well, I'm stumped. We're just going to have to wait for the biopsy or the autopsy. And so, but I believe in, let's figure it out. Let's not like play guessing games with anyone's health. And so this is one of our patients. She said, I've been going to East West Health for about 2.5 years now, and it's been a life-changing experience. I work in the healthcare industry and had been unable to get any help from traditional medicine for the symptoms I was having. So once again, she had all the labs ran, and good news, Connie, everything looks normal, but she still felt like crap. East West helped me heal my gut, eliminate the aches and pains, eliminate my constant autoimmune flare-ups, and brought back my energy. This confidence is freeing after decades of pain and suffering. My future looks great, and I owe it all to East West Health. So for those of you who are tired of being in pain or poor health, there's a simple process that we take you through, and we call it the Healthy Self, where we get the right tests ordered. We don't play guessing games. We order functional blood chemistry. This is not like a physical where it's like, okay, no diseases this year, I'll see you next year. We actually dive in and look at all the functional imbalances that may be going on in your body. Then we recommend the next gen treatments to get things balanced out. And then we have a medicine that focuses on age reversal, pain-free movements, and then enjoying life with some mentoring and health coaching. So love to hear from you guys. Anyone who needs help, if you have not had your labs ran in 6 months, you need to give us a call, and let's get those taken care of before things get out of control.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Regan. Awesome show today.
My pleasure.
We'll be back same time, same place next week. Love you all. Bye-bye.
See you guys.